Well, in this video, we will discuss some important glucose transporters which are present to transport glucose inside as well as outside the cells. Not all the transporters transport glucose in two direction. Rather, most of them transport glucose only in one direction. So, transport of glucose inside the cell is of two types: sodium independent transport and sodium dependent co-transport. Okay, when we move toward the sodium independent transport, to transport glucose independently of sodium, these are the major glucose transporters which are present in different tissues. So these are glut1, glut3, glut2, glut4, glut5. The first transporter, glut1, it is present principally in erythrocytes and blood-brain barrier, while glut3 is present in neurons. Glut2 is present in pancreas, liver, and kidney. Glut4 is present in adipose tissue and skeletal muscles, while glut5 is present in small intestine and testes. So, how they transport glucose inside and out inside the cells? Suppose this is the cell membrane, and here lies your glucose transporter. Suppose this is your glucose transporter, and it is closed inside the cell. Suppose this is inside the cell and this one is outside the cells. So here comes your beautiful glucose molecules, and they come here, but they are blocked as the channel is closed. But when glucose binds with this channel protein or transporter, these transporter are all are channel proteins which are present in cell membrane and allow the passage of glucose through these proteins and these channels. So when it binds, it induces a conformational change in this protein, which leads to transport of glucose inside the cells. No, there is conformational change. As a result of this conformational change, glucose is transported inside the cells. So this is how these transporter transport glucose inside the cell, and they differ in their tissue specificity, and they are specific for different tissues. So when we talk about these transporter, GLUT1, GLUT3, GLUT4, GLUT5, these are one-way transporters. It is one way. It's also one way. It's also one-way transporter, and it's also one-way transporter. It means that they allow transport of glucose in one direction from outside to inside the cell only. While the GLUT2, which is present in pancreas, liver, and kidney, it is two-way transporter. Two-way transporter means it allows glucose to travel from outside to inside the cell as well as from inside to outside the cell. When glucose concentration are higher in the blood, it moves the glucose from outside to inside the cell, and when glucose level falls in the blood, it allows glucose to leave kidney, liver, and pancreas outside. So in this way, it basically works in two-way direction. And the GLUT5, this is a fructose transporter. It is not glucose, it is instead fructose transporter. It is written here unfortunately, but it's a fructose transporter, not glucose transporter. And when we talk about GLUT4, the specific thing about this is it is insulin dependent. It means that the number of GLUT4 in adipose tissue and skeletal muscle depends upon insulin. The presence of insulin, the number of these transporter increases, and the glucose from the blood is transported into adipose tissue and skeletal muscle. As a result, glucose concentration in blood decreases. In the absence of insulin, the reverse effect takes place, and the number of these transporter decreases. So basically, GLUT4 is insulin dependent. So what we have studied yet: GLUT1 is present in erythrocyte and blood-brain barrier. It is one-way transporter. GLUT3 is present in neuron. It is also one-way transporter. GLUT2 is present in pancreas, liver, and kidney, and it is two-way transporter. GLUT4 is in adipose tissue and skeletal muscle. It is one-way transporter and insulin dependent. GLUT5 is present in small intestine, testes. It is one-way transporter, and it is basically fructose transporter, not glucose transporter. And you can see here neuron GLUT3 is present, and it is not insulin dependent. If the transporter in neurons is insulin dependent, and it can cause serious neurological consequences in diabetics, in which glucose level increases. So or there are too little level of insulin in diabetics. So this is basically neuron the transporter is insulin independent. The second type of transport of glucose is sodium dependent transport. And sodium dependent transport, it is basically co-transport, and it happens in intestine, kidney, and brain. All these five transporters are actually causing facilitated diffusion, as there is a transporter involved, but there is no consumption of energy in the form of ATP. But the sodium dependent transport, it is basically active transport, as energy will be consumed here. How it happens? Basically, this is a cell membrane, suppose, and here a transporter lies. You can assume this transporter as this is a transporter present in membrane, and so it has basically two binding sites. One binding site is for glucose and one binding site is for sodium. On one side sodium binds and on one side glucose binds. So what happens here? This is outside the cell, this is inside the cell, and what is happening here? Sodium, suppose this is sodium and suppose this is glucose. Sodium moves down its concentration gradient. Sodium moves from higher to low concentration, and when a substance moves from higher to low concentration, energy is released, and this energy which is released is used for glucose uptake. So glucose moves from high concentration to low concentration. So it is working in this way, that sodium is moving from higher concentration to low concentration, and energy is released in this process. This energy which is released in sodium transport is actually used in transporting glucose from high to low against its concentration gradient. This is basically a active transport, and this kind of active transport is called co-transport, and this transport happens in intestine, kidney, and choroidal plexus of brain. So it was all about the some important transporters, and in the upcoming lectures we will study about glycolysis and Krebs cycle and so on. Thank you.